The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "A rich man had a steward who was reported to him for squandering his property. He summoned him and said, 'What is this I hear about you? Prepare a full account of your stewardship, because you can no longer be my steward.' The steward said to himself, 'What shall I do now that my master is taking the position of steward away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, so that when I am removed from the stewardship, they may welcome me into their homes.' He called in his master's debtors one by one. To the first he said, 'How much do you owe my master?' He replied, 100 measures of olive oil. He said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Sit down and quickly write one for 50. Then to another the steward said, 'And you, how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 cores of wheat. The steward said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Write one for 80. And the master commended that dishonored steward for acting prudently. For the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. I tell you, make friends for yourselves with dishonest wealth, so that when it fails, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. And the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. If, therefore, you are not trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? If you are not trustworthy with what belongs to another, who will give you what is yours? No servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon." The Gospel of the Lord. There's a story about a man who read his own obituary, and he didn't like it one bit. The headline said, "The merchant of death is dead." The thing is, that story is very critical of the man who had invented dynamite. It criticized him for all the devastation that came from his invention. The problem was, it was his brother who had died, and the French newspaper had the wrong guy. Oops. Well, that dynamite inventor took stock of his life, and he didn't want to be known forever as the merchant of death. He chose to bequeath all of his wealth to promoting harmony and goodness. That man was Alfred Nobel, the founder of the Nobel Peace Prize. I must be honest with you, some historians don't buy the whole obituary thing. They think it's an urban myth. But there's no denying the fact that Alfred Nobel was the inventor of dynamite, and he did bequeath his life savings to the Nobel Peace Prize to celebrate goodness. In a very unusual way, in a very surprising parable, Jesus is more or less telling us to do something similar. Use all of our resources, our talents, our energies for goodness and holiness. See, Jesus really gets our attention with his parables. It's one of the great points of his genius is that he's a great storyteller. And he had some wonderful subjects for his parables. You think of him, a great banquet, a bounteous little mustard seed, a hidden treasure, and in the passage that comes right before this in Luke's gospel, a father who is generous and forgiving to the prodigal son. This time, Jesus gives a parable about a scam artist, a scoundrel, And that guy is the hero of the story. Jesus is good at throwing us a curve with his parables. They're meant to really make us think. In this one, the steward, or we would know him as a property manager, is called in and fired by the rich owner for squandering the owner's property. We don't know whether he just took it himself or he just was a bad manager. Whatever it is, he got fired for it. Essentially, this manager is a crook. But now that he's caught, he says, uh-oh, I can't do physical labor, and I'm too proud to beg. So he comes up with a scheme and to save his own hide. He called to all of his former boss's debtors and said, here's what I'll do. They don't know that he's fired. He calls all of them in and reduces their debt, sometimes by a lot. And you know, those debtors are very happy. The whole point of this was, this steward thinks, well, these people are all going to love me. So either one of them is going to give me a job, or they're going to take me into their homes. He was doing it just for his own self-interest, not out of the goodness of his heart. Thing is, he's dealing with a short-term crisis for his long-term future. This is known as the parable of the unjust steward. And naturally, what do we want to see? We want to see justice. We want to see him thrown in jail for this scam, to get really in trouble. But instead, the boss says, way to go. Why would Jesus come up with a story like that, revolving around a guy who is a scoundrel? Well, it's because of the point Jesus wants to make. He's not condoning immorality in business. He is endorsing the guy's resolve. The character of that guy, he's finally acting like a manager. He's finally dealing with a crisis. And Jesus says, we all ought to be as dedicated and creative in our faith life as people like that are in their business lives. Jesus wants us to be that enterprising in the pursuit of the kingdom of God. He knows what we need better than we do. He knows we should work even harder at our faith than we do in the gym. He knows that we'll be better off if we put as much energy and desire into our faith as we do into our career or politics or our kids' travel squad game, our garden, our favorite sports teams, our electronic devices. Let's face it, we can miss saying our prayers, or we can forget to fast on Ash Wednesday, or we can miss out on the sacraments, and it's easy to shrug it off and say, oh well. But if we're on the road and we realize we've forgotten our phone, that's a catastrophe. Jesus knows us better than we do ourselves. He knows that we're better individually, and he knows that we're better collectively as a society when we put God first. We're healthier and happier when we put God first. Put God in every phase of our lives. We should not compartmentalize our faith like the guys in the first reading today from Amos. They were sitting there and they're saying, trying to look religious, but really inside their head they're going, well, I can't wait for the Sabbath to be over so I can go out and exploit people, exploit the poor again. To the contrary, Jesus wants us to use every bit of our day and all of our ingenuity to help build God's kingdom. I was reading about former quarterback Philip Rivers. You might remember him. He was the one who was drafted high by the Giants, and they traded him to the Chargers for Eli Manning. Now, Philip didn't have the titles that Eli did, but he had a very good career in the NFL, 17 years. He had really good stats. He made the playoffs numerous times. Throughout his career and since his retirement, he has always been outspoken, share his Catholic faith. Every year, he has a special observance on January 20th. Not just because that's the anniversary of the day when he played the AFC Championship game with a torn ligament in his knee. January 20th is the feast of Saint Sebastian, the patron saint of athletes. He's thankful for the life he had as a pro quarterback, and he remains thankful for it. He's financially well off. He doesn't need a job, but still, he took a job as a football coach at a Catholic high school. And he and his wife run a charitable foundation, and so far, they've raised over $1 million for children in foster care, called the Rivers of Life Foundation. He knows what it means to use what you have to further the kingdom. Then there's a woman named Catherine Keppers. She won the Miss Minnesota pageant a few years ago. And many times, winners of those pageants, they go into TV news or acting or modeling. She chose to become a Catholic missionary. She serves at college campuses in a program called Focus. Go to campus and teach the kids there, reach them about God. And I'm sure she really reaches them. We can agree with this, that a college kid, who would they rather hear from? Someone like me or a beauty queen? We can also look around this very day, this very month, to a powerful example of the way people use everything that's inside of them to turn toward God. After the truly unspeakable, horrific acts that happened in our country over the past few weeks, many people dug into the emotions that they had inside of them and turned them into prayer. Prayer vigils, prayer online. Not recriminations, not fighting back, not destruction, but prayer. Sophia Forkas, the 12-year-old girl who was shot in the head at Mass in Minnesota, had a really tough go, and she still has a ways to go. But she was lifted up in prayer everywhere at her parents' request. And just this past week, her parents said, she's got a long way to go, but so far, her recovery is miraculous. When we turn what we have inside of us to prayer, miracles happen. St. Paul said it in the second reading today. We should pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without anger or argument. Turning our hearts and minds and energy and time over to Jesus is what gives us hope, even at a time when it seems like the world is off its axis. Using our resources for God is our way of doing things in the short term to ensure our long-term future. This is how we're good stewards. This is how we receive the peace of Christ, and that's our peace prize. Someday, we will all be called to account for ourselves, just like that steward was in the parable today. Every day now is our chance to make that occasion a joyous moment that'll last forever.